Hi, and welcome to this video on accessing accommodations for disabled or chronically ill students. So in this video, we're going to be talking all about the different things that you might be able to ask for as a student with a long-term physical mental health condition, which can make studying easier for you. So first things first, when you start university or college, it's a good idea to meet with a relevant wellbeing disability team to talk about your support and access needs. Now, something to note is that you don't have to meet with them at the start for your needs to be valid. If you feel that you don't want to initially, that's up to you. But if you then feel later during your degree, look, I need some support, that's fine. That shouldn't be a problem. You should be able to go in your halfway through your course and say, look, actually, I need this help. And they should be willing to meet you at any time. So you are able to sort of qualify for the support if you have a physical health condition or mental health condition or anything like that, which is classed as disability. However, in many cases, if you have a condition which the support services at your university are less aware of, then you should still be able to ask for help and support if it's something which is impacting your ability to study by talking through your needs with them. Often they'll sit you down and create a tailored support plan for you, and then that's where you can discuss the sort of things that you might want, which we'll talk about in a second. And then at the end, they'll give you the option to, they usually do want to share it with relevant staff, people who might be teaching you. But it is up to you who that's shared with. Of course, it is obviously a very good idea to share it with your teachers and your lecturers so that they know, so they can implement these things. But that doesn't mean you have to share it with every single lecturer who teaches you. So here are some of the things you can ask for. Exam modifications. One of the most obvious ones. So that means there's lots of different ways your exams can be modified. You might be able to have a longer exam. So if the exam is normally an hour, you might be having an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. So that just gives you more time because it might be hard for you to concentrate and focus if you have your conditions making it hard for you to do that. That also allows for more extended breaks and longer breaks and more breaks in general, because of course any student is entitled to take breaks during the exam, but you probably are more likely to need them if you have a condition which is making the exam harder to take. You can also sit in a separate area or take your exam in a separate area. That might be in a separate area of the hall, or maybe a completely different room, so that you're just not overstimulated and overwhelmed, and it's just giving you a better environment to do your exam in. You should also be able to take water or snacks or anything like that you need into your exam. That is just two things. There are plenty of things you might feel beneficial to bring with you into the exam, and you should discuss that. And of course, if you have trouble with reading, writing, communicating, scribes and interpreters and assistants like that are available and should be available to you. Extended deadlines. So that, of course, applies to the other types of assessment, like coursework, projects, presentations. So you should be able to apply for these extension processes and mitigation processes. Now, mitigation is different to extension. Mitigation is when you cannot complete the assessment at all. So it's not, I want 3 extra weeks to complete this. It's, I cannot do this right now, and I have to do this, come back to this in 6 months' time. And you are entitled to do that, particularly if you've been going through a really, really bad period with your health. A lot of the time, the eligibility policy allows for those types of situations in mitigation. So that's always an option if you feel for whatever reason you've not been able to complete the deadline, even with an extension. However, extensions are, a good idea to ask for. You should also discuss about the fact that you shouldn't have to really go through as stressful a paperwork process with it, because of course, if the reason you're applying for an extension is the same every single time, they should be aware. This also applies to library loans. So you should be able to take up things from the library and keep them for longer, because maybe you're finding it harder to do your work and do it at the pace everyone else is. So you'll need that resource for a longer period of time. Absence. Oh, no, modifying certain assessments. That's where we're at. So if you have practical assignment, this is something not everybody knows that they can access actually, but it is something you are able to ask for at college, university, and school, wherever you are. So if you have an energy limiting condition or a physical condition, you are able to say, look, there's this practical assignment I have, and this is not really the best way for me to be assessed because of this. So you might be able to discuss alternative ways that you can be assessed, for example, with a written assignment instead. And, vice versa. if you have an assignment which is heavy on communication and you struggle with communication, so maybe you have a presentation, again, you can talk about alternative ways for you to be assessed. As long as you match the learning outcomes and the criteria that the university or college have set for the course, it should be fine. Moving on now to absence. We are at absence now. So, of course, if you live with a long-term health condition, you are more likely to have absences, right? So, talking about how you want more lenience and understanding for that is important, because absence is something which is unfortunately judged quite a lot. And if you are absent for a very valid reason, that should be something that they understand. So, for example, you might need to be absent because you're not doing well, you're at a bad period, you're flaring with your illness, it's going through a rough time, you need some rest, you need some time off, or you might have hospital appointments or things like that. So, allowing for those things to come into your scheduling, and you should therefore be allowed to leave early, be late, without so much questioning. That's not to say that every time you're late, it's going to be because of your illness or your condition, but there should be a lot more understanding that that's highly likely why you may be. And so, of course, this then comes into the fact that you should be able to remotely access course material. So that being sent the slides or being sent whatever material that was given out during the lesson or lecture. And then a good thing to do is, if you feel like will be very beneficial to you, is ask if you can have one-to-one catch-up sessions with your teachers and lecturers so that you can ask any questions, basically having your own mini tutorial lesson if you weren't there for the main thing. Now, this comes into remote learning as well. So, of course, a lot of universities, colleges, schools do have remote ways of accessing their lectures and studying. This is not widely in place in every university though. So it's really about if that's not widely in place, as in if the lecture itself is not being filmed, then it's talking about, can I access these materials remotely and sort of do it at home, right? But also in many courses, not every aspect of the course is compulsory to attend in person. It's encouraged, but it's not compulsory. So you might be able to study some of the modules, study some of the elements of the course at home. And there should not be pressure on you to come in to do that in person if you're not able, right? Because it's difficult as it is to come in person when you're going through a bad time with your health, or you have access barriers and access needs. It's more difficult. So if doing it from home and studying remotely makes it easier for you, there should be a lot more understanding and leniency with that. So, but if you do go into lectures, which of course you are going to want to do sometimes, or maybe if you are able, then certain things you should be allowed to bring include recording equipment, right? So you can bring little speaker, microphone, things like that, so that you are able to listen to the recording again at home, especially if you're finding it hard to focus in a lecture. Being able to bring other sorts of equipment in to take your notes, sort of maybe specialist laptops with software on them to help you. Again, stacks of water, things like that. You should be able to take breaks without being questioned. You should be able to sit away from others if needed. And you should be able to leave early and arrive later if needed as well. And also some consideration about your mobility aids and where you're going to be able to be placed and sit in the lecture, and talking about how you're going to enter the room. These things should be considered, because to be honest with you, a lot of the time in lectures and classrooms there isn't that spatial consideration for somebody who might have a mobility aid, so that's important to talk about. But in general, these are things which should be a really good idea for you to bring up. Now, you might feel awkward being like, oh no, well, if I take a break, then everyone's going to be wondering, why am I taking a break? Because even if the teacher knows, doesn't mean your classmates and people in your class know. However, from what I've experienced, people might be confused and be like, why is that person taking a break? That's strange. But they're going to forget about it pretty quickly. They're going to move on with their life. If you need to take a break, you need to take a break and go and take your break, because you have a right to do that. The teacher, if they know about it, is not going to say anything. The classmates may think whatever, but they're probably not going to say anything either. And it's not worth sitting there feeling awful, not feeling like you're focused, not feeling able to be there. If you need to take a break or to leave early, then definitely do that, because you have a right to, especially if it's within your individual support plan. Okay, so what equipment can be provided? Apart from your own personal equipment, which you should ask and should be allowed to bring with you into lectures, things that actual colleges and universities might be able to provide include screen readers and magnifying readers for sort of computers and books and resources in the library or in the classroom. So you can get ergonomic chairs as well, which is specific chairs which may help with pain issues and things like that, which you might be able to ask to sit in the library or in classrooms. Lift access, of course. Now, this is sometimes just a given in certain institutions, but not always. So, particularly if you're in school, like high school, they don't always allow everyone to access a lift. So, ask about that. And then lockers. So, in general, a lot of students are allowed to have a small locker, but you might need a larger locker to leave more things in. And you should ask if there's a way that you can access one. It also just means that you're maybe less, you can carry less around with you during the day, so it's a bit less tiring. And that's why another good thing to do is sort of look at governmental disability support schemes in the country that you're in, if they exist. So I'm talking about from the perspective of the UK because I am British myself. And that is the DSA. Now, I might do a whole other video on applying for DSA and talking about it, but essentially they can offer you specialized equipment. What equipment can they offer? They can offer you a new laptop if you don't have one, which is sufficient for your study needs, because often, like I said earlier, people will bring laptops into their lectures as an alternative to carrying around heavier books and things, so that's helpful for them. You can also get things like software installed onto that laptop, which normally costs money, so things like dictation software. So right now, for example, if I'm speaking, then it would type for me when I'm talking, or software which reads back to you what you've typed, so you don't have to check it yourself with your eyes. And things like that. There's also recording software where you can sort of assimilate any recordings you've taken from lectures, and they can give you recording equipment as well if you don't have it, if you want to record your lectures. Printers as well, printing ink, interpreters and study support systems and people to help you with that. But also travel allowance, which is something which is really great to use if for whatever reason your condition makes it hard for you to take public transport. You're able to ask for, say, so things like taxis, which may be able to sort of drive you to and from your home address and your institution of study. And they can cover the cost for that. So that's really great. And that's a really great way to find studying more accessible. So as part of the DSA, you'll need to go in for a needs assessment. And I'm sure that in many other places where you have disability support schemes for students, the assessment is going to be part of it. So really, the assessment is not as intense as some other disability support / benefit schemes you may try to apply for as an adult. That doesn't mean it's not stressful or not detailed, because it is, but there is a lot more you tell us how we can help you sort of dialogue. So you can detail the impact of the symptoms or whatever you're experiencing has on your studies, why they make that aspect of studying difficult, and what you think could benefit you. So, but it is important to check before you do apply to these things what the scheme can help you with and can't help you with, because there are certain things that DSA cannot do for you. And they can't pay for your accommodation, for example. They can't pay for your food. They can't pay for your medical costs or anything like that. So it's more to do with specific study needs. So, but good places you can check out include some of those support schemes where you are. You definitely should always check out the disability policy of the institution you're studying at, whether that's a university, a college, or school. They should have a disability, well-being, mental health policy, and you should definitely read it, because then if they, for whatever reason, aren't implementing the right things for you, you can pull them up on it and say, look, as referenced in your disability well-being policy, you say this, so you should be providing this accessibility here. So there are also disability rights organisations like Disability Rights UK and International Disability Alliance and such like that, wherever you are, websites which have information about your rights as a disabled, chronically ill student or a student with health conditions. So you have the right to access these accommodations and help. So don't forget that. I've said yo instead of you. So That's embarrassing. But apart from that, thank you very much for watching this video. And if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, subscribe and follow. Thanks.